All right, welcome. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on something we all do, but maybe don't think about too much, the checkout counter. We're going to break down the hidden science and the real professional skills that go into every single transaction. Think of it as turning standard retail training into a masterclass for anyone who's ever wondered, hey, what makes a checkout experience really great?
So, let's kick things off with this piece of retail wisdom. The last impression is a lasting impression. And for so many customers, the cashier is that last impression. I mean, think about it. A store can do everything else perfectly. Awesome products, great layout, super helpful staff. But those last few moments at the register, they can literally define the entire experience. It's not just about swapping money for goods, it's like the final handshake, you know? It's the last memory you walk out the door with.
So that really begs the question, right? What are the skills that turn a good cashier into a great one? What are those specific techniques, those little bits of know-how that take someone from just, a clerk to a real checkout professional? Because it really is a craft, and like any good craft, it's got its secrets.
Okay, so let's dive right into the heart of the craft, handling cash. Now, I know what you're thinking. In an age where we're all tapping our cards and phones, cash seems kinda simple, right? But trust me, getting it right is a fundamental skill, and it's one of the first things that separates the pros from the rookies.
First things first, let's get on the same page about what this role really is. A checker cashier isn't just a button pusher. No way. They're responsible for the whole shebang, building that friendly rapport, making sure every bit of info is entered with perfect accuracy, and juggling all kinds of payments. And they have to do it all while keeping a cool head. It's a big job.
Okay, now this is a classic pro move, the counting up method. Instead of trying to do some tricky subtraction in your head under pressure, you just build up. You start with the price and count up to the amount the customer gave you. It's a super simple physical process, and what's brilliant is that it pretty much eliminates errors. Plus, the customer can see and hear you doing it, so there's total transparency. It's just a slick way to handle change.
And speaking of pro moves, here's a golden rule of checkout etiquette. Ring, then wrap. In other words, you always finish the payment before you start bagging the items. It might seem like a tiny detail, but oh man, it prevents that super awkward moment. You know the one I'm talking about, the one where a card gets declined or someone's short on cash and everything is already neatly packed in the bag. This little rule avoids all that embarrassment.
You've got to think of the cash drawer like a pilot's cockpit. Organization is absolutely everything. And these tips, they aren't just, nice suggestions. They're professional habits. That little trick of crumpling new bills, that keeps them from sticking together so you don't accidentally hand over two for one. And always counting your float, the starting cash, at the beginning of your shift. That's your insurance policy. It's these little disciplines that guarantee speed, accuracy, and honestly, your own peace of mind.
All right, now let's tackle a payment method that's a bit more old school, but one that requires some serious diligence. We're talking about the personal check.
So not all checks are created equal. You'll see a couple of different kinds, and the key difference really boils down to one thing: security. A personal check, that's basically a promise to pay from someone's bank account. But a money order? That's prepaid. The money has already been collected and secured, which means for the business, it's pretty much as good as cash.
Now, accepting a check is not a quick glance and go. It's a careful two-part verification process. Think of part one as being all about the person and the paper. You're basically a detective for a minute. You're checking IDs, you're matching photos to faces, signatures to IDs, and you're making sure the check itself is legit. Is it written in ink? Is the date correct? All that stuff. Okay, then comes part two, and this is all about the money. You have to verify that the amount written in words matches the amount in numbers. You're on the lookout for any changes or mistakes that haven't been initialed. And then you make it official for the business with a stamp and your initials. Yeah, it's meticulous, but it's an absolutely necessary checklist.
But let's be real, right? Modern retail is about way more than just cash and checks. The whole landscape of how we pay for things has just exploded.
So, beyond physical currency, a cashier today is navigating this whole ecosystem of modern transactions. You've got layaways, where people pay over time. You've got discounts and coupons, credit cards, debit cards, and each one has its own unique workflow. The real skill here is just being adaptable, knowing your way around the point-of-sale system so you can handle whatever comes your way.
All right, so no transaction is truly complete until you understand all those numbers on the final receipt. And a big part of that is tax. So let's decode the final price with a quick crash course in Canadian sales tax.
So in Canada, you can think of sales tax as being built in layers. And the foundation, the base layer for the entire country, is the GST. That's the goods and services tax. It's a 5% federal tax that gets applied to most things pretty much everywhere.
Now, on top of that foundation, most provinces add their own layer of tax. That's the provincial sales tax, or PST. And here's where it gets interesting, because each province sets its own rate. The final price of the exact same item can literally change just by crossing a provincial border.
And then, to make things a little simpler, a few provinces decided to just blend the two together into one single tax, the Harmonized Sales Tax, or HST. So really, you've got 3 different systems in play across the country. Just the federal GST, GST plus a PST, or the all-in-one HST.
So what does all of this actually look like in practice? Well, this chart gives you a really quick snapshot. When you put all those systems together, depending on where you are in Canada, the total sales tax you pay can be as low as 5% or as high as 15%. And that is a huge difference on the final price tag.
And this table here, this lays out the whole map for you. You can see the 3 systems perfectly in action. You've got places like Alberta with just the 5% GST. Then you have provinces like BC where they add their PST to get to a 12% total. And then there are others like New Brunswick that use that single HST and end up at 15%. For a cashier, knowing your local tax isn't just about the register doing the math. It's about being ready to answer that super common question from customers. Hey, why does this cost more than the sticker price?
And all of this kind of leaves us with a big question to chew on. As technology makes the act of paying faster and almost invisible, with tap and pay and all that, does the cashier's role get simpler? Or does it actually get more complex? Does the focus shift away from the mechanics of the transaction and onto the quality of that final human interaction? Maybe, just maybe, that last impression matters now more than it ever has before.